Chapter 17. A Tiny Parachute. "Pete gone? But where?" Mrs. Hollister exclaimed. "I think he went to find Mystery Mountain," Pam answered, and told how bad her brother had felt about losing the map. "Only he should have been back by this time," she added, tears in her eyes. Dolores said they had decided to stay in the spot where the group had spent the night, so that Pete could join them. But now they were afraid he was lost. "Or captured by Mesquite Mike," Jack spoke up. "He's the one who made our horses run away." "That lazy, good-for-nothing cowboy," Truchas burst out. "Wait till I see him. I'll... The old man never finished the threat, for at that moment they heard a plane. Looking up, they watched it come nearer. "It's Dad!" Diego cried. Mr. Vega evidently spotted the party on the ground, for he dipped the plane's wings in recognition. "I wish we had some way to tell him Pete's missing," Pam spoke up. "I know a way," Diego said. "Let's separate so he can count us. Dad will see right away that one is missing." Quickly, the little assembly scattered. Mr. Vega circled the range twice. Then, as if he understood the message, he dipped his wings again. This time he flew off, going back and forth above each mountain peak. Those below waited tensely to see if he could learn anything about Pete. 20 minutes later, Mr. Vega came back. The children wondered if he would attempt a landing, but Diego said the ground was too uneven and stony, it would rip the wheels off. "Oh, look!" Ricky cried. Something white appeared out of the plane window and began to float toward the earth. "A handkerchief parachute!" Diego exclaimed, as it fluttered closer to the ground. "Dad's sending a message to us." "It's going to land right here," Holly cried excitedly. But just then a sudden breeze caught the little parachute. "Oh," Ricky moaned, "it's going to blow into the trees." The handkerchief became snagged in the topmost branches of a tall pine tree, and everyone groaned. "We must get it," Mr. Hollister said. "I'll climb the tree," Ricky offered. "Somebody lift me to the first branch." The lowest branch was 12 feet above the ground, however, and this was not going to be easy. Truchas stepped forward, fingering a lariat which he held in his hands. "With this," he said, "we can fix that easy," and flung the lariat over the limb. The loop dangled down the other side. "All set, Ricky," he grinned, and tied the loop around the boy's waist. Then he pulled on the other end of the rope, hoisting the lad safely to the limb. "Neat trick," Diego praised the herder, and everybody clapped. "Okay, here I go," Ricky said, as he scrambled upward through the branches of the big tree. Everybody below watched breathlessly as the boy climbed higher and higher. Finally, Ricky reached the top branch, at the end of which dangled the parachute. "Can you reach it?" Mrs. Hollister cried. I think I can." Holding on with one arm to the trunk of the tree, Ricky reached out as far as he could, but the parachute was inches from his fingers. "How will I ever get it?" the boy thought. "If I let go of the trunk, I might fall." Then an idea came to him. Holding on to the tree trunk with the crook of his arm, Ricky unbuckled his belt and swung it outward with his free hand. It caught the cords of the handkerchief parachute. "Nice work," his father shouted, as Ricky pulled the message toward him triumphantly. He stuck it in his pocket, put his belt back on, and scurried down through the branches. "Drop into my arms," Mr. Hollister instructed his son. Ricky hung on to the lowest limb, then let go. Swish! He landed safely in his father's arms. "Let's see the message, dear," Mrs. Hollister said eagerly, and Ricky handed it to her. The piece of paper was folded into a tiny square and tied with a string. When Mrs. Hollister opened it, she gasped in surprise. "Pete's a prisoner," she exclaimed. "Oh no!" cried her children, and tears rolled down their cheeks. "Read the rest," Mr. Hollister urged, his voice shaky. His wife read nervously. "On the far side of the flat-topped mountain, I saw 3 figures. Two of them pulled the third out of sight as I flew over. It's my guess Pete is a prisoner. I have radioed the police, but it will take some time for them to get to the mountain. Do you want to try your luck?" "Do we?" Mr. Hollister exclaimed. Quickly mounting the horses, with Pam and Helen riding double, they crossed the range. Truchess led the way, and soon the party began its climb up the closely wooded mountainside. There was no sign of a trail, making the trip very slow. "Maybe those bad men will take Pete away," Holly worried. "And we'll never see him again," Ricky said. "Children," Mrs. Hollister called firmly, "let's hope for the best." They were riding single file now, in a forest of pine and ash. Truchess was in the lead, picking his way among the tall trees, when Pam, directly behind, pulled up to his side. "Do you think the monster?" she began, but never finished the sentence. All at once there was a rustling in the woods near them, and a frightened deer bolted across their path. The two horses whinnied and reared. "Whoa!" Truchess shouted, reining in his mount. But Pam's horse kicked up his heels and dashed forward at breakneck speed. The move was so unexpected that the reins were jerked from the girl's hands. Pam grabbed the animal's mane to keep from falling off. "Help!" she cried. By the time Truchess could calm his horse and start to gallop after her, Pam's mount was far ahead, running madly up the steep mountain. Truchess had nearly caught up when he noticed a tree with a low-hanging branch directly in the girl's path. It seemed certain that she would be knocked from the saddle. "Duck!" he yelled. But Pam had another idea. She wanted to get off the horse. As the branch loomed up, she grabbed it securely with both hands and hung on tightly. The horse galloped away from under her. "Hang on!" Truchess cried. "I'm coming!" The herder guided his horse directly beneath the dangling girl, and Pam dropped down in front of him on the saddle. "Oh, thank you, Truchess," the girl said in relief. "Glad I was handy," the old man answered. "Now we'll get your horse." They galloped up the slope. Spotting the runaway, he yelled, "Whoa!" and when it did not stop, Truchess neatly roped him with his lariat. "There, quiet, boy, quiet," he said, stroking the horse's nose to calm him. By this time the others had come up, and after a word of praise to both Pam and Truchess, started to move on. As Pam was about to put her foot in the stirrup, she noticed a piece of paper half crushed into the pine needles under a nearby tree. "That's odd," she thought, and walked over to pick it up. Pam looked at it curiously before realizing it was upside down. When she looked at it the right way, the girl let out a shriek. "Daddy! Mother! Everybody, look at this!" As everyone gathered around, Holly said, "It's the lost page from the book about Mystery Mountain." "Since Mesquite Mike took it," Jack said, "he must be close by." "And he dropped this only a short time ago," Mr. Hollister reasoned, seeing that the paper was very clean. "In that case," said Truchess, "we must be extra careful. That human coyote ain't to be trusted." The ground over which they now rode was becoming more stony by the minute, and the trees were so close together that a horse could hardly get between them. "We'll have to figure this out," Truchess said, stopping the train of riders. He squinted to his left. "I see daylight over there," the herder told them. "Let's walk in that direction." Everyone dismounted and hurried toward the open spot. It proved to be a bare section of the far side of Mystery Mountain. Above them loomed a cliff. All this time they had been chattering, but now Diego said, "Listen, I think I hear voices up there." The Hollisters and their friends became quiet, staring upward. A moment later, a head appeared over the edge. "It's Pete!" Pam shrieked. "Yes, it is," Mrs. Hollister said, thankfully. "We've found him." Pete put his fingers over his lips to indicate it was not safe for them to be heard. Leaning over, he said in a hoarse whisper, "Go to the place where there are two big rocks. A secret trail starts there and comes up here." Mr. Hollister nodded and said, with only his lips moving, "Where are the rocks?" Pete started to give further directions, when suddenly a man appeared behind him and clapped a hand over the boy's mouth. Pete was dragged out of sight.